Good afternoon. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
I'm Robert McNeely. A pleasure to be with you here on Monday morning. It is, what is the date? It's March 10th. It is the month of the leprechauns and St. Patrick, and that's next week.
Yeah, it is next week, and don't worry, we have our St. Patrick's Day ties and the socks and everything ready to go for next Monday. But boy, we have 7 days until then. A lot of news to get to. Of course, today, the Vice President speaking to the National League of Cities. So we'll have that live remarks from the Vice President. Also, later today, President Trump will be holding a roundtable with technology CEOs. He'll also sign some more executive orders, which is always fun to watch, right?
Oh, absolutely, because the authority is in his office to get a number of different items done. And when you look at memorandums, you look at also presidential executive orders, sometimes it just moves the needle to get something done legislatively as well. And this president has been very concrete and thorough on what he wants to accomplish.
Exactly. And then on top of that, later today, President Trump will hold a ceremonial swearing in for the Director of the United States Secret Service, of course, Mr. Curran, at the White House later today. So a lot of coverage on the second part of today, but still, of course, the Vice President's speech coming up here shortly. Before we get to some live interviews and other interviews that were just done earlier today, let's go to Colonial Metals Group, an awesome sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Robert, as you know, having that anchor in gold and silver and the U.S. dollar, it's a good trifecta.
Oh, absolutely. In addition to properties and assets, always smart to diversify perhaps a 401k or IRA into tangible gold and silver, these precious metals that have stood the test of time. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. That's where you can learn everything if you're protecting simply yourself for retirement, or maybe even, family members as we look to those who might be going to college. It's spring break here in Auburn, Alabama, but you might be wanting to send your student to an extraordinary university where we live and maybe elsewhere throughout the country. Always smart to have gold and silver to back that up.
Exactly. So it's freegoldguide.com/RSBN. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. All right, let's move on now to our live interview, our first one of the day here. We're going to go to Ryan Walters, who's live in Oklahoma right now. Ryan has actually made his rounds on various media, including some of the mainstream media, to talk about having Bibles within Oklahoma schools. He's a superintendent there. And sir, thank you for joining us. I mean, this is all about the history of the book, isn't it?
That's right. Listen, the left has attacked us, the teachers union, the ACLU, but here's the reality. They can't change history. They can be offended by it. They cannot like it. But the Bible played an incredible role in American history and the history of Western civilization. We're going to make sure the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, and Constitution are in every classroom so our kids can analyze the founding documents.
And how can the rest of the country learn from Oklahoma's lead on teaching biblical education?
Yeah, look, I think every state should be doing this. We should have a Bible back in every classroom in the country so that, again, when kids study the Pilgrims, when kids study the presidents and their speeches, when they study the First and Second Great Awakening, when they study figures like Martin Luther King Jr., who writes exclusively about the Bible from a letter from a Birmingham jail, they need to be able to have access to it, because what we've seen time and time again are left-wing ideals pushed by the teachers unions, blocking out and suing, frankly, any teacher who mentions the Bible in its historical context. So what we've got to do is we've got to stand in the line, we got to stand in the way and say, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to teach American history. We're going to teach the Judeo-Christian values that impacted American history, and it's going to be done in historical context. Should be in every state in the country.
Exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, history is history, and the Bible is part of it. So Lee Greenwood, joining forces with you. Talk to us about what his role will be and why he decided to join you.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than Lee Greenwood. So country music megastar, patriotic hero, Lee Greenwood, gave us a call and said, I would love to help get Bibles in the classrooms. I would love to kind of kick off this donation campaign for people all across the country who say, we want to see the Bible back in the classroom. We want to see our kids understand American exceptionalism. So he launched BiblesForOklahoma.com to allow folks from all over the country to go, we're going to put a Bible back in every classroom in Oklahoma, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the country. But we're proud to be the first state to do this. We think it's essential. If we're going to make America great again, our kids have to understand what made America great in the first place, and that's what we're doing here in Oklahoma.
Ryan, it's very interesting. There seems to be a revival taking place in our country, and it coincided seemingly with the 2024 election. What do you attribute that to?
Look, I attribute it to President Trump. President Trump unapologetically fighting for Christians, for Jews, for people of faith, for saying, listen, this obviously played a major role in American history. This obviously is very important to our society. So why in the world are we blocking it out of schools? We need prayer back in schools. We need the Bible back in schools. President Trump has been ardent defender of that. President Trump has been an incredible advocate for families. And I think people have said, there we go. We got someone who's going to stand in the way of the radical left, who's going to fight for us as citizens, and he is a man of his word. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. And boy, we've seen him act very quickly, haven't we?
Exactly. It's so true. And then talk to us about Oklahoma. We know that Oklahoma and West Virginia, both states voted all red, of course, for President Trump again this past election. What is it like with the teachers there? I mean, is everybody kind of like, hey, I mean, we'd love to have Bibles in the schools, but if you look at a different state, they're saying, no, not here.
Well, look, here's the dynamic. And first of all, yes, every county in Oklahoma for the third straight presidential election voted for President Trump. This is America first country right here in Oklahoma. And look, most of our teachers are good, conservative, valued, traditional folks that really want the Bible back in the classroom. We still deal with the teachers union here, even in heavy red states that fight this, that sue me. I mean, look, we had these left-wing groups here in Oklahoma sue me to keep pornography in the classroom and are now suing me to keep the Bible out. So they wanted porn in, Bible out, just to show you kind of the values you deal with those radical left-wing teachers unions. But listen, the vast majority of Oklahomans have common sense. They support conservative values. And so we're rocking and rolling. But listen, every state should be doing this. I was on the phone the other day with folks that there were some atheists on the phone that said, guys, it's undeniable it played a role in American history. We don't know how people can act like it didn't. So I really think people of all backgrounds have to understand our history. And again, we're not forcing our religion, but what we are going to make sure is that our kids understand American history.
And that's what I was going to ask, Ryan, with follow-up to that. Is there an opt-out for certain teachers who may not believe in these things but recognize the historical nature and significance of the Bible?
Now, look, you are required to teach American history in the classroom. We were crystal clear on our standards and our guidances that say, listen, you're not pushing a religion. We're not asking you to come in here and push this onto kids. What we're asking you to do is, again, when Martin Luther King Jr. cites the Bible, we're going to make sure kids understand that. When people like Abraham Lincoln talked about God's providence over the country, our kids need to understand what Abraham Lincoln meant by that. When Thomas Jefferson said our rights are endowed by us by our Creator, how did the people of America read that? How did they interpret the Declaration of Independence? What did it mean in their lives? Look, I think it's absolutely crucial. You see folks like Benjamin Franklin talked about morality in society. Well, what is he referencing? What are we talking about there? It's so important that our kids have that historical context. No matter what they believe, no matter what their political persuasion, they need to know where we came from as a country. And so that's what we're doing with this initiative.
I think I'm going to play this interview on repeat because what you said was perfect, sir. Seriously. Superintendent Ryan Walters, thank you so much from Oklahoma. We'll like to have you on again here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thank you for all you guys are doing. Thank you for having me on.
Definitely. You know, it's that Department of Education, too, like going back to the states, we're seeing a lot of education stories are happening these days.
Right, and they see exactly what's happening in the classroom on a daily basis, so they're able to monitor that much better than, say, No Child Left Behind, which made testing standards all or one size fits all. And that was a massive failure on the part of former President George W. Bush and then Senator Ted Kennedy. It was a far left teacher union bill that got through. And I remember actually at the time, that was really through middle school and high school for me, where a lot of liberal groups were actually against that because they said it's taking education away from the states and localities. So it was far left legislation that's really kind of harmed education in this country. And if you're looking at against the world, our education system's a lot lower standards than the rest of the world. So the best way to do that is sending it back to the states.
And coming up, we'll be talking to David Schmus. He's out of California. He works with the Christian educators. It's a whole separate thing. Instead of being a part of a teachers union, there's actually a Christian version of that. We actually interviewed David. We'll have that interview in just a minute. Tax Network USA is our next sponsor here, 800-357-1415. You know, Robert, it's easy just to go to tnusa.com/RSBN or just call that number.
Oh, yes, a good idea, especially because 1 month from now, April 15th, is quickly approaching with that tax day. So settle those back taxes now. And we know from the last administration hiring over 88,000 IRS agents. So protect yourself from bloated bureaucracy in government. tnusa.com/RSBN or 800-357-1415. Don't delay. Call today.
Exactly. Tax Network USA, great sponsor at Right Side as it's 1:40. about 20 minutes to the top of the hour here on this Monday, March 10th. 7 days from St. Patrick's Day. Always looking forward to that. But before we get there, a lot of news to get through. Here are some of the world news stories we're following as well. Let's stay actually in our country for a second here. The Congress looking to pass that CR, the continuing resolution, of course, and President Trump wants this to be diverted, of course, from a shutdown at all.
Yes, absolutely. So we can at least fund through September, if not beyond. And President Trump wanting this all in one bill as well. Now, there's some different takes on it, even within the Republican Congress. Senator Ted Cruz, of course, saying in two bills it would be better. We'll see how they come on this consensus. But the Democrats seem very committed this week to shutting the entire government down.
Exactly. The president saying earlier, government funding runs out next week, which is this week. So this is a Truth Social post from last week saying, and Democrats are threatening to shut down the government, but I am working with the great House Republicans on a continuing resolution to fund the government, as you said, to September to give us some needed time to work on our agenda. Conservatives will love this bill because it really does great things here. It sets us up to cut taxes and spending and reconciliation, all while effectively freezing spending this year and allowing us to continue our work and making America great again, of course. We're looking at things like that the president can continue to identify waste, fraud, and abuse of our tax dollars, and just let the agenda continue on. So we'll be following that CR story as well. Let's shift over to the Department of State. We know Secretary of State Marco Rubio on his way to Saudi Arabia to meet with some Russian officials there with the delegation in regards to getting the Ukraine-Russia war taken care of. But then the Secretary of State also talking about the people that support designated terrorist organizations here in our land, including Hamas, threaten our national security. So saying that the United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. Of course, President Trump even backing off on the $400 million of funding to Columbia University because of that same thing.
Well, yes, with the anti-Semitism we saw, over the course of the last 2 years, especially since the attack by Hamas on the Israeli people and really the world, because people who were attending that concert were teenagers, young adults, some older folks as well, simply going to enjoy a beautiful fall evening in Israel. And many Americans, many Israelis, many of the Jewish faith attacked simply because of their background. And there are people there from the UK and really around Europe as well. So it should never happen again. And if you go to college, you should not be attacked. You should be challenged peacefully and patriotically, but not attacked for your religious background, your sexual orientation, your skin color. I thought we learned that from the civil rights movement, but apparently there are some pro-Palestinian people who think they can use force and violence in order to get their point across, and it will not happen as long as President Trump is commander-in-chief.
It's wild to see people at all supporting any terrorist act at all, including Hamas. So we know that our government will be strong against that moving forward, including, again, Columbia University. Federal funding, $400 million has been taken from them because of all this anti-Semitism going on out there. All right, so let's go to American Financing. So AmericanFinancing.net. So we know that we don't know your exact situation, but if you're like the thousands of homeowners American Financing talks to every month, you're struggling to keep up, barely making ends meet, drowning in high interest debt. And it's not your fault. Life got more expensive. Inflation hit hard, of course, and you're still carrying credit card balances with 20% plus interest rates while your mortgage sits untouched. You're ignoring the one thing that can turn it all around, your home. This is where AmericanFinancing.net can help. So obviously saving $800 a month on average is definitely that step in the right direction.
And these experts at American Financing, if you get involved today, can actually delay those payments by 2 months, might even help with tax day right around the corner. So think about that, a savings of $1,600 over the course of 2 months, and that's just on average. So go to AmericanFinancing.net and find out all what you could do for your home. And I just think about the last 25 years, how expensive things have gotten. And, people are concerned, even going to the grocery store right now. Finally got over to Costco yesterday, still limiting 3 different things of eggs because of the bird flu going on. So, you just have that situation as well. It's tight right now, and people can definitely use a great company like American Financing.
President Trump, of course, working with Maganomics to get that increased here in this country, which means lower prices for everything. Final point about American Financing, they actually have a team of salary-based mortgage consultants, so there isn't any incentive to put you into a loan that doesn't make sense. There are no upfront fees, so you can find out more information on AmericanFinancing.net. All right, so it's 1:45. We just had Ryan Walters, the superintendent from Oklahoma, joining us live. Let's go to the Christian Educators Executive Director. His name's David Schmus. This is quite the interesting interview. Take a look. Joining us now on RSBN is David Schmus, the Executive Director of Christian Educators. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Thank you, Matthew, for having me.
Definitely. Talk to us about Christian Educators.
Sure. Christian Educators exist for a couple reasons. One is we help teachers walk out their faith legally in our public schools. And that's often a very hard thing to do. So we equip them with all the legal do's and don'ts and all the encouragement and how to have a kind of a kingdom mindset as they do that. The other thing we do is we provide a professional association for educators, many of whom are used to working in highly unionized environments. And you may know, Matthew, that those teachers' unions are typically highly politicized and are funding so much of the stuff that we see is confusing our students and our kids and wreaking havoc on the culture of our public schools. And so rather than these teachers paying these unions, on average, I would say about $800 a year, much of which goes to politics and funding agendas. They can join us for a fraction of the cost, get better liability insurance, legal protections, consultation, things like that, all from a biblical worldview. So by offering those services, we're essentially helping to defund so much of what is, I think, going wrong in this country by helping teachers have an option to get out of teachers' unions.
Can you talk to us about how long you've been involved with Christian Educators? How big of a staff do you have? And what is the main passion there? Is it, obviously when you go woke, you go broke, but with this, you're just replacing it with more common sense, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have members in all 50 states around the country. So we're a small organization, but we're mighty in many ways. I've been involved since 2015 here on staff, executive director since 2017. Christian Educators has actually existed since 1953, so not a new organization. Lots of history, and we have staff spread over all the country. About 200 leaders around the country that serve with our schools and putting on events and reaching out to educators and serving them. And we have a team of consultants and legal professionals that help when our teachers get in trouble, they need help and have an issue that they need to call us and get counsel for. So,
do you have any kind of specific examples for that? And then secondly, say someone's a teacher from Michigan watching this interview right now and they want to join you guys. What's the process there as well?
Yeah, sure. So to join, you just go to christianeducators.org. Super easy, and just follow a process. And as soon as they join, they are covered by our $2 million professional liability insurance, our good job protection coverage, and our unlimited consultation. So that's a very easy process. And yeah, we get calls, all week long we get calls about things like, I've got a transgender student in my classroom, and I'm not sure what to do, and my schools require me to follow these policies. Or we get stuff that's not even about faith, like, hey, I had to break up a fight and I gave a kid a bruise on his arm and I grabbed him and now I'm being investigated. And so we walk through teachers all kinds of situations. We walk them through whether they're faith-based or whether they're just simply trials and tribulations of any teacher may experience.
Yeah.
We're happy to come alongside.
It sounds like, just those two stories right there. I mean, that is difficult enough to deal with, but let alone teaching our youth just the basics in America. What's your overall 30,000-foot view of really which direction our country should go with what's going on? I mean, President Trump is saying that we should, get rid of the Department of Education and bring it back to the states. What's your overall thought on all of that?
Yeah, it's very clear, Matthew, that we need to get the politics and the agendas out of the public school curriculum. Go back to teaching, reading, writing, arithmetic, if you will. Get back to the basis of focusing on academics. The challenge of doing that is there's so much dysfunction and mental illness and emotional challenges of the students in our schools. And so these school professionals are looking at these issues without the Lord, without the biblical worldview, and they're trying to devise solutions, but unfortunately those solutions often harm more than help. And so we need more and more educators that carry a biblical worldview, that walk with the Lord, to go into our public schools, essentially as adult missionaries. to bring hope and encouragement and peace into our public schools, because private schools and homeschools are great options. We love those options, but the fact of the matter is 85 to 90% of our students in this nation are in the public schools. And if we just abandon them to their fate, this country is going to experience the results of that, and it's not going to be positive.
Exactly. It sounds like it's a mission field, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We want our teachers to, within the confines of the law, to carry the presence of Christ into our schools. Absolutely.
David Schmus, the Executive Director at Christian Educators. Thanks for taking the time with us and teaching us more about what you guys do.
All right, thanks for having me, Matthew.
Definitely. Okay, so that interview from earlier today, as we're about 40 minutes or so from seeing the Vice President speak to the National League of Cities. Looking forward to hearing those remarks from the Vice President, who has been just doing an awesome job, hasn't he?
And I really enjoy when he gets deep into policy, especially what's good for our cities. And I'm very excited to see between now and next year, if not before, how crime has lowered in our major cities. It's inevitable with everything happening now with the ICE removals. And if you're someone like a Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and you don't think that's a good thing, something is wrong with you. Perhaps you have a woke mind virus, because why would you not want to secure our major cities? And as President Trump said, these are beautiful hubs to showcase America. I think about growing up near Chicago, how great it was to take a trip into the city in the 90s. I mean, it was once one of the safest big cities. Mayor Daley would compete with Mayor Giuliani between New York and Chicago and brag, oh, we were safer this month. And one Republican, one Democrat. I want to go back to those days.
It would be great. It'd be great. I've never been to Chicago. I've been to a lot of cities around the country, but not Chicago yet. So hopefully it gets cleaned up. Regardless, I'd like to go to a Cubs game someday. Now, not regardless in the sense of I don't want it to have law and order, but
right.
I'd love to get to a Cubs game.
So I used to live right along Sheffield and Waveland, and Murphy's Pub right there. Go and frequent that, because a great Irish pub, especially this time of year, and really your corner, you're a friend when you walk in. So Mr. Alvarez, now that he's Irish, we've discovered that, perhaps we should go for a cold one this summer.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool. Irish, Italian, and Cuban, for those of you keeping track at home.
I mean, is there anything better?
Well, I mean, sure, maybe. All right, so 1:52 Eastern, let's go to Colonial Metals Group, an awesome sponsor here at the network. So just freegoldguide.com/RSBN. You'll get a free info kit on the 1, 2, 3s of how to get this all taken care of, because at the end of the day, having gold and silver as your backup plan, or just to diversify, you have it in something that's so high value, gold and silver.
Yes, and a great way to diversify assets and properties, 401ks to IRAs. It's getting harder now just to save up with this economy, and regardless of who's in charge, whatever government you've lived under for centuries and centuries, the time-tested commodity, gold and silver. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. It's also wonderful having Paul Stone on, really an articulate CEO on these issues. And he comes on the show, really every couple of weeks now. So be sure to catch those interviews or scrub back for when he visits, because it will really convince you to work with Colonial Metals Group. They are the best in the business.
Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com. It's 1:53. Let's shift over to Spring, Texas, the angelpace.com, Robert.
I love this company. It's Christian owned. They hire veterans, and being right outside the Gulf of America and outside of Houston, Texas, now I think is the second biggest city in the world, or in the country at least, and that has been just phenomenal. But Spring, Texas, a beautiful suburb. They get a lot of mosquitoes. So it's not only the Miracle Cream that will help you get rid of your dry skin, but they also have a cream that can repel mosquitoes naturally. So non-GMO, no chemicals, just vitamin Bs, vitamin Cs with the immune-boosting orange Miracle Cream. But get yours now at angelpace.com. They also have a small black label for the gentleman there. So it can be nice and discreet. It won't be like, oh, the girlfriend comes to visit and she's like, what is this Miracle Cream doing here? She'll be like, wow, you actually take care of yourself. It will be impressive regardless. So angelpace.com, whether it's a great gift for a loved one or for yourself, check them out today.
Exactly, and you can use the RSBN promo code to save some money as well. So 154. So we know that the Vice President will be speaking to the National League of Cities conference in Washington, D.C. at about 2:30. And then a bit later today, President Trump having 3 different events. And we'll be recording and bringing it to you live as much as we can as the day goes on. Obviously, even the other day, it was interesting, when people go into the weekend, we're still seeing the picture of the president going onto Marine One or onto the Air Force One or even landing in Florida. So if you want to see everything when it comes to the president of the United States, you can count on us for that, but also America First stories and other interviews, even outside of the Beltway. So why don't we go there actually? Let's go way outside of the Beltway. Let's go all the way to the continent of Africa. No joke. Pastor Mark Burns has been a regular on the show. He's actually in the Democratic Republic of Congo, helping out there in various ways, and also gives us his feedback and his reaction on some of the terrible things going on in Syria and all around the world. So let's go to that interview with Pastor Mark Burns. Joining us now is Pastor Mark Burns, a regular on Right Side Broadcasting Network, out there in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Happy to be here, live from Kinshasa.
So tell us about your trip there to Africa and what's going on there.
Well, I came here to offer a prayer of peace, prosperity for the whole nation. As you may know, and the people back in America know, that the Rwandan-backed group of individuals called M23 have attacked the east side of the Democratic Republic of Congo, have taken over two major cities, a major airport in Goma, where people are getting killed. And right now, this is an active invasion that is happening right now in this country. And so I've come here to pray with President Tshisekedi, to pray with the leadership of this nation. I had the amazing opportunity to pray of peace and prosperity at a wonderful foundation yesterday here with Bishop Paul David and his brother Dr. Mr. Morris and Mr. Vincent and all of the team that is here. Mr. Gabriel, who's the president of the foundation, thousands of people screaming they love President Trump. Right now, President Trump is loved right here in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm here to help spread that message.
That's awesome. And then on top of that, the ministry aspect of just being there to pray with people. And also, can you talk to us about your thoughts about the recent violence against Christians and other minorities, not only what just happened in the DRC recently, but also in Syria over the weekend? Just your overall thoughts right now.
Well, again, this is onslaught on Christianity. Christians have been dying at the hands of different religions since the foundation of Christianity. We of the Christian community need to be outraged, and that's one of my messages, to talk about religious freedom, away from persecutions. No person, regardless of their faith, should have to worry about being killed because of their faith or discriminated against because of their faith. And we as the Christian community, especially those of us back in America, should be having a massive outcry to stand up with the Congolese that lost their lives, stand up with the Syrian Christians that lost their lives, and the families that are still going over the loss of their loved one. And they know that there's power in numbers. Again, that's one of the reasons why I'm here in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo. There is things that are happening. I want to say this: in America, it is not as violent as everybody thinks it is to be. As you can see, I'm out here, the beautiful streets of Kinshasa. People are moving up and down the streets. Yes, violence is taking place on the east side, eastern side, but I believe that there's a resolution that's happening. Right now, President Trump has sanctioned Rwanda, and President Trump has sanctioned M23. And now there is discussion of a special envoy. I can't verify that to be true, but there's a special envoy that the president may be selecting, because President Tshisekedi has vowed to offer minerals very similar to the Ukraine deal, minerals to the United States of America to get the United States involved in stopping the group M23 dead in their tracks. And those talks are imminent to happen here in Kinshasa with the president.
Pastor Mark, can you talk to us a little bit about the everyday life of people there in Congo? Because at the end of the day, back in 2004, I went with a Christian group to have a mission trip there in Africa. And, you know, it was interesting. People were smiling and happy. And overall, it was not what we typically think when we think of certain countries when it comes to maybe a third world nation, that kind of thing. So what is it like there?
I mean, I'm blown away. I mean, especially in Kinshasa. You understand, Kinshasa is the home of the rumble in the jungle, right? 51 years ago, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman fought right here under the former Zaire, that is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. People are working, businesses are happening. I'm standing right now in a 5-star resort hotel right here in Kinshasa. People are working just like back in America. So it's not where people try to make it out to be. Yes, there's poverty, but there's poverty everywhere. And President Felix Tshisekedi is working really hard. He really embodies the spirit of Patrice Lumumba, who again was the first president of the Democratic Republic, first prime minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thanks out to Secretary Robert F. Kennedy for sending me that information while I'm over here. Thank you, sir. For reminding me of who Patrice Lumumba was and what he stands for. And the people here, they use that symbolism as a way of inspiration and nationalism to be a nation where they are strong and independent. And I think that's the message around that President Trump is pushing around all of Africa, that we are pushing aid, we're pushing trade, not aid, where these nations are standing up on their own. And you can see people are driving down the road. People are safe. Cars are driving, people going to work, getting off work, going to restaurants. It is a beautiful country that America needs to see, and we need to show the world of the great things that President Felix Tshisekedi is doing. And I believe there's a great resolution that's about to happen with M23, Rwanda, South Africa, the conflict that is brewing, Uganda. We want to make sure that the conflict doesn't become a regional conflict. And I believe President Trump is the man to do it. Because, again, he's going to bring peace in Ukraine and Russia. He's going to bring peace in the Gaza and Israel. And he's going to bring peace by the blood of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, right here in the Congo and M23.
Amen.
I think that's a Nobel Peace Prize.
No, exactly. He's already, he should have 10 Nobel Peace Prizes with the way he's been working. All right, sir, Pastor Mark Burns, thank you so much for joining us from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We'll see you again here in the States. Safe travels.
Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
All right, so out there at the DRC there in the Congo, the African continent, great to see Pastor Mark Burns there doing the work of God right there.
Yeah, really inspiring. And 2 great messages from the pastor. Well, actually 3. First and foremost, pray, be in communion with our Lord and Savior, but also the fact that these cities, these countries that were once extremely impoverished, really growing thanks to either democratic movements or just simply because they are building their wealth. And something to watch out for, because that's what President Trump talks about here in America. We need to grow our wealth again as a country, or we will be under. And to Pastor Mark Burns' point, there's poverty everywhere. And there are things happening throughout the world that are atrocious and that really the Christian community should be outraged by. There is a good anger, a willful anger of wanting to protect our fellow Christian brothers and sisters around the world who don't always have the freedom to worship as we do here in America. And it's our duty to speak out on that. And that's why we're proud here at Right Side Broadcasting Network to bring you interviews like Pastor Mark Burns, who is on the front lines fighting those battles.
Exactly. Well said. I mean, 2:03 Eastern time. Let's go to a couple sponsors before we get ready to go to D.C. MyPillow.com/RSBN. So many awesome products on there. How many could we name right now? I mean, from the sliders to the slippers to the sheets, what else?
Well, there's just about 2,000 products, up to 80% off the entire website if you visit mypillow.com/RSBN. But look at this mega sale that's just been fantastic. The My Cross replica of Mr. Lindell's cross, save 30% on that. They have a guys and gals version. The girls have a white and black option. So very lovely to wear when you're out on the town. How about the My Towels, a 6-pack for $29.98, and those flannel sheets, so comfortable, $44.98. A great way to start your your morning? It really depends upon how well rested you are. And Mr. Mike Lindell is an expert at getting that prepared for you.
Definitely. And then one of those products, of course, is My Coffee. We have it right here in the studio. This is an open bag, and there's only about this much left. Let's see. I hope I don't spill any coffee on there. So we've already drank a lot of this good stuff. This is great. So My Coffee is one of those awesome products as well. I mean, they're all really great. And I know that my wife and I think we have probably between us 10, 11 items from MyPillow and MyPillow.com. So MyPillow.com/RSBN. And hopefully we can drink some of this a little bit later. We'll have to make some of that after the broadcast. Let's go now to another great sponsor, Home Title Lock. So did you know that scammers can actually steal your home right out from under you? So what we're hearing is that the FBI calls it house stealing. It's a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. We're told it's pretty simple how these criminals just get this. It's unfortunately that simple. Criminals would forge a signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee, and then before you know it, they're stealing that title from out before you.
Yeah, exactly. And you won't know until you're getting the forfeiture and cancellation notices. They can even take out loans using your equity as collateral or even sell your property behind your back. Can you imagine how frightening that would be if the new owners just showed up, really for both parties, and how unpleasant that would be? You won't even know what's happening until you get these notices. So immediate 24/7 management and maintenance and watch of your property can happen through HometitleLock.com/RSBN. These urgent alerts will give you any changes that are necessary. And if fraud should happen, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to protect you. Here's the best part. We have teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history. So that report can be invaluable when going through the options to protect your home. That is HometitleLock.com/RSBN. And sign up for their $1 million triple lock system. You really can't go wrong with this.
Yeah, it's a great sponsor right there and a great product for safety for your home title. HometitleLock.com/RSBN. All right, so it's 2:06 Eastern, 1:06 Central Time, and that's 11 out there in the West Coast, on the West Coast. Okay, so we'll be seeing the Vice President here shortly. He's been doing such an awesome job. I mean, ever since we heard him speak up at the Oval Office, he's just been on a roll. I mean, even talking about some of the people that are supporting Ukraine, you know, they came up to him. I guess there was a protest happening, and they came up to the Vice President, and he was with his daughter, and he was nice enough to give them some time of day, but you know, he wasn't very happy about that at the end of his Truth Social post about saying that people aren't, if they're going to follow around people that have, you know, their kids with them and that kind of thing, you're an expletive person. That's what the Vice President said, but I mean, he's not wrong.
Well, he's a Papa Bear, and you know, two things really grind my gears in politics: is when you attack family members, especially when they're young children, especially minor children. That should be like off the out of bounds, if you will. And then also people that attack others for, you know, certain weaknesses or addictions or illnesses, whatever that might be, regardless of ideology, that's got to stop, because a constitutional republic cannot survive when those things are happening, especially attacking the family members. Now, if someone pipes in about public policy, sure, you know, really have that debate, have that argument. I think J.D. Vance probably does that better than most. But when you're attacking young kids, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, you really have to have your head examined.
Exactly. And then you think about Vice President Vance when he was out in Munich at the Security Council meeting there. Another great speech there. So overall, I mean, a great job by the Vice President that we're watching and you guys are seeing. So we're going to hear from him again in D.C. in just a little bit. But this is one of a number of things happening right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network a bit later today. We know that President Trump will hold a roundtable with technology CEO council members at the White House. He'll also sign some more executive orders. And then a great moment will be when the president holds a ceremonial swearing in for the director of the United States Secret Service at the White House.
And we saw Sean Curran on full display. This man has really collided with history, protecting President Trump in that scary moment at Butler, but then, you know, hugging DJ Daniel as he was given him the honorary promotion to the Secret Service from being an honorary police officer with the Houston Police Department. And we saw more of those hugs in the Oval Office, his proud father looking on, and perhaps there's no greater test than for a parent to see their young child going through such a debilitating disease like a rare brain tumor. But DJ's a fighter. He was given 5 months to live after being 8 years old with this diagnosis. He's 13 now, and he wants to serve his country. How cool is that?
It's so awesome. These role models we're seeing. I mean, the Secret Service director himself. I mean, if you're a young kid and you're looking at, the Secret Service agent, you're like, I want to be a Secret Service agent or law enforcement officer. That's great. How about DJ Daniel, an overcomer? He beat cancer, right? So it's like, hey, that is encouraging to other people. You see President Trump, an overcomer. He's gone through so much crap over the past 4 years.
That's amazing.
So many terrible things, and he's the president of the country, leader of the free world. So be encouraged, not discouraged, right?
Well, I think it's neat because I haven't talked to any Secret Service recently like we were on the campaign trail, ran into a lot of these gentlemen and ladies, but with Sean Curran, it's been a privilege over my career to be around a lot of law enforcement, and that's just kind of been by happenstance, and thank God for that because I've learned a lot from them. These people are willing to go into literal fires, into people shooting at one another in order to protect their fellow citizens, whether that be state or local police, all the way to federal agents like in the Secret Service. But they have certain lingo and language. And someone like Sean Curran, they would say he's not a suit, even though he's wearing a suit to work. He's not part of that bureaucracy. He's been a field agent. He's been right there in the line of fire and understands the needs of these people who are willing to put their lives on the line. I think about when you go to these great rallies, these great speeches, just notice the Secret Service. They put their hands right here. This is the quickest position to get into attack formation. A lot of them are wearing rings. Think about a job that you literally sign up for where it's not guaranteed that you come home every day. And they have family members themselves and people they love. So that entire family is really serving the country for us and for our great president. He understands that, and it's awesome to have Sean Curran at the top of the agency to reform it.
On top of that, a shout out to every firefighter, first responder out there, our military, protecting us at the southern border. I mean, you think about a military, you think about that they would go overseas to so-called protect us, which they have before, but now they're on our own soil protecting us because they had to seal up the border down there. But again, it's all about peace through strength. President Trump didn't start any new wars. He doesn't want to start any more. Surgical strikes on occasion are needed for certain ISIS and terrorist members. But, at the end of the day, we're seeing a lot of great things happen in our country at 2:12 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go to Text Network USA 800-357-1415. TNUSA.com/RSBN. So if you have any back taxes, you can settle them, but also if you don't have the money to settle right now, this is where this group comes in. They can help you get to that point through payments and other things right there at 800-357-1415.
And with that pesky tax day right around the corner, great to jump ahead and get their opinion on your assets, because these are experts in property taxes, state and federal income tax as well. So protect yourself from the IRS. TNUSA.com/RSBN, Tax Network USA.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about some other headlines we're following. Of course, we know that there's a U.S. delegation led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio headed to Saudi Arabia to talk with Russian officials to hopefully get that Russian-Ukrainian conflict taken care of there. Also, Israel has cut electric supply to Gaza. The European Union has invited the interim president, al-Shara of Syria, to Brussels on March 17th for a donor conference. Okay. And then Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, says he will, quote, win the U.S. trade war. Well, Mark Carney is just as woke and as weak as Trudeau was, so I don't know how he's going to get that done.
Exciting to hear from the new governor.
Yes,
the newest state.
Exactly, the Governor Carney there. So, these guys, they just replace him with another one that's just as bad or maybe worse.
Yeah, and it's silly because it's such a conservative state traditionally. And granted, I keep saying state because I think it should be the state. It's a beautiful place, and I look forward to when I go visit there. So I think they fit in right well since we're paying for all their security.
We'll see what happens. We know that sometimes going into Canada, the Customs and Border Protection situation on their end, they are very, very strict with every little detail. And You come back into the States, if you have your passport, they're like, welcome back.
Exactly.
And man, when you cross on into the United States border, doesn't it feel good?
Oh, it does. It's a golden road. I kiss the ground every time I come back.
Do you really? You got to take a photo of that.
I do. All right. Yeah, you don't believe me? I love this country.
Good stuff. Speaking of the country, President Trump on Truth Social recently saying, quote, "I want a dynamic country where private enterprise carries the day, not the government."
Yes.
That's from the leader of the free world. That's President Donald Trump right there.
Yes, and it makes sense because it's all about peace through strength, and strong families lead to a strong nation. He clearly is putting pro-family policies into place in order to make that happen.
All right, let's go out to San Diego, California at 2:14 here Eastern Time, 11:14 out there on the West Coast. Joining us now is Jim Desmond, a San Diego County supervisor who's saying, you know what? I don't want any more sanctuary county, sanctuary city junk happening in my neck of the woods. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've gone to a super sanctuary here in San Diego County, unfortunately, by the actions of my colleagues.
It's just awful to see that. And I've been to San Diego. What a gorgeous city. They call it America's finest city for a reason. But it's been so unfortunate to see the homelessness, in the East Village, or even, in the along the southern border with Point Loma and all that. You're trying to get it secure there. You're trying to say no more being a sanctuary city. So what's being done by you as a supervisor in that county?
Okay, well, tomorrow we have one of our board meetings, and I have an agenda item on there to reverse what the county board had done in December of last year, which was basically put another couple of roadblocks in the way of our law enforcement to be able to connect to or alert ICE that we've got these criminals, illegal criminals, in our jails. And so what my colleagues did is they put forward and they say, well, before we can contact ICE, we have to go get a federal or a state warrant from a judge. So I don't know how long that's going to take to do that action. It basically just deters us from being able to get these people deported. And we're talking about, these are criminals that have been caught, they've been tried, they've been convicted, and they've been sentenced. And they're in our jails, and they're here illegally. And this isn't for stealing a loaf of bread. This is, assault. This is rape. This is burglary. This is felony crimes that they're in our jails for. And we're being hindered by my colleagues from being able to directly connect to ICE and let them know, hey, we've got this person here. If you want to come interview them, if you want to come deport them, and we're also letting them know the release dates. And so we're allowing them. So basically, I'm trying to get back to where our law enforcement can freely contact ICE and let them know we've got these severe criminals in our jails.
So, Supervisor, are your colleagues violating any law in doing such? Is this just from ignorance, or do they have an agenda? And also, how much is it costing to house these dangerous criminals?
Well, it costs a lot of money to keep somebody in jail, for any period of time, and so this just adds on to it. This is more of an agenda. I mean, our current state law, believe it or not, in California, allows law enforcement to contact ICE on certain types of crimes. And so that's what we're talking about, these heinous crimes that are felonies or worse, where bodily injury and kidnap and rape, all those types of higher end crimes, and being able to let ICE know these people should be deported right away. We shouldn't be keeping them in our jails and costing taxpayer dollars. So this is more of an agenda to just put or anti-Trump California to put another roadblock in the way of trying to, working with ICE, having our local law enforcement work with ICE and letting them know this person's here illegally and they've committed this crime. Come get them, come deport them.
We look across the country, and when we look at cities, sometimes you think, well, that's probably led by a Democrat or that kind of thing, Los Angeles, But for San Diego, we know with all the military that's involved with that area, a lot of great people as well that are supporting President Trump. But you as a county official, coming on Right Side Broadcasting Network and talking about these type of issues for your area, is this something that you get a lot of blowback from? Do people come against you, or what is it like there?
Now, quite frankly, most people agree. On both sides of the aisle. Unfortunately, San Diego County is still a little more blue than it is red, but that seems to be changing. But no, most people agree. This is one of those 80-20 things, about like men and women's sports. 80% of the people think this is crazy. 80% of the people think if these people are committing these types of crimes, they should be not out of the country. They should be deported. But California, unfortunately, we're a sanctuary state as declared by Sacramento. And with these laws, we have laws in place that our local law enforcement cannot enforce immigration laws. So when we have these boatloads of people come from Mexico, still, even they're coming today because the land area has been shut off by 95%. We still have the occasional boats come on shore, and people are just able to get off the boats. They're beached on our beaches and just walk into our communities, and our local law enforcement can't do anything about it. And they know it. The smugglers know that. And so California has unfortunately put out the red carpet, and these are some of the consequences that we're having to deal with.
It's roughly been 50 days since President Trump took that oath of office. Have you seen any improvement, even with the very woke policies coming from the Golden State?
Well, we saw our governor try to dance around the men and women's sports. I don't know if he really gave a direct answer, but at least he thought it was unfair. So that was kind of shocking, I guess, for the entire country to have him say that. But he'll probably walk it back at a later point in time. But unfortunately, California, we give free health care to migrants as soon as they come across the border. We give them in-state tuition in our colleges and universities. And we really, even in San Diego County, my colleagues have also passed an ordinance or a law that we spend $5 million a year. We have a line item in our budget, $5 million a year, San Diego County dollars that could be spent for roads and infrastructure, but paid to defend any illegal immigrant from being deported. So we're paying for the attorneys, and regardless of why they're being deported, we're paying the attorney's fees for that. I'm hoping in this next election we can get 3 Republicans on the 5 board supervisors and be able to quash that and stop paying the legal fees for people here illegally.
If you're just joining us, this is Jim Desmond. He is a San Diego County supervisor. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. But before we let you go, do you think that California could ever have a Republican governor again?
Yeah, yes, I do. And I think a lot of the state is turning, maybe not as fast as we could be, but I do think absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, we had those terrible fires in Los Angeles, and the people living there are waking up to the fact, hey, there's no water in the fire hydrants. The state in the cities that are government, Democrat-led, are having these issues, and people are starting to realize, hey, they're not even protecting us.
It's quite interesting that Gavin Newsom has his own podcast. I think he should be doing other things, no?
Yeah, absolutely. What a waste of time.
Jim Desmond, thank you so much for joining us from beautiful San Diego, California.
Thank you very much.
It's great to see just on all corners of our country. Usually you think of certain areas and you say, oh, that's only blue, it's Democrat. They love the open border thing. Not the case.
Well, we saw such a shift in the last election to the right in these very blue states. You look at California, you look at Illinois, New Jersey, for example, that all had major 10 to 24 point swings pending the counties. And then President Trump spoke on it this weekend in an interview, just stating that over 2,500 counties went the direction of the red ticket, the Republicans, whereas roughly 525, mostly very populist, but only 525 going for the other side. So such a brilliant thing regarding our founders' vision in the Electoral College, making sure all of America is heard, not just that woke minority.
Man, it's great to see every day the woke mind virus hopefully going down, going away, getting out of the system of people across this land, because you think about it, all it is just someone that followed what somebody said that seemed like they had authority, or even if it was entertainment or media or a politician that spoke this garbage that's rooted in straight up evil, the Marxist principles and Nietzsche and Darwin and all that junk. And so that's the base of it, right? And so all these people that are just following doesn't mean they're bad-hearted people. I've met a lot of people that have good hearts, but their mind is saying something totally different. And I actually want to bring up something that I don't usually bring up here. So this show called Love is Blind, I don't watch it, and people are probably saying, yeah, you do. I don't watch the show Love is Blind, but I want to say this. There was a lady that was at the altar and said that she didn't want to marry the guy because he didn't talk about Black Lives Matter or didn't talk about the vaccine enough or didn't know what the church believed on that and all this stuff, right? And this guy's a good dude, and she left him because of these stupid woke mind virus thoughts. I mean, they had a good connection. They looked like they would be together. And then her good-hearted person, she seemed like a good person, but then has all this junk to say because of her mind. It's screwed up the whole relationship. And that's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's an interesting show. I had not heard about Love is Blind. Well, I've heard of it, but never watched myself. It sounds a lot like what I've experienced out there in the wild of the dating world, but I'm as stubborn as it gets. So, yeah, it's just sad that people would look at something like that and look at a good person and not be willing to just dialogue with them on that, because not everyone's going to be 100% in any relationship, right? But that's why we discuss these things, we talk about these things, and then recognize and research, hey, maybe BLM was a far left Marxist movement. When they say things like on their website that I have screenshots on from 2020 that we want to destroy the nuclear family, you start having questions about those things over time.
Exactly. It's just wild to see. And I was seeing that on X, just clips of it. You know how you go paging through just seeing all this stuff. And I saw the clip there. So that's where I watched it. 3 minutes and 28 seconds
out
worth.
Myself. Wow.
I watched it with my wife a little bit too. It's just interesting to see that.
Right.
It's ruined so many things, the woke mind virus. But you know what? We are overcoming and we are winning in this country. It's awesome to see that. Producer, which one do we go to next? All right, Colonial Metals Group. Let's do it.
I love this group. freegoldguy.com/RSBN or scan that QR code. Colonial Metals Group, led by Paul Stone, the great CEO, will share with you why properties, assets, maybe a 401k and IRA are good, but it's gold and silver, time-tested, tangible metals you can hold in your hand to protect you for your retirement, or maybe sending your kid to a great university like Auburn University right here in Alabama. Smart to have these things because inflation is out of control.
It's so true. I mean, Mr. Warren Buffett there dropping $133 billion in stocks, just dumping that to the side. So it's just like there's so many different things going on. It's always good to have gold and silver as a strong backup plan and to diversify with your retirement and savings. So freegoldguy.com gets you a brand new info kit that will help you get to your next level in financial freedom. All right, let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN. We showed you this before. We're going to show it again because this is the good stuff. My coffee is awesome. As I showed before, this is how much is left right now. Just there you go. So we've been drinking some good coffee here. You can get it as well. But how many more products, Robert? I mean, this is just
2,000, yes. And it's rock, paper, scissors for that, for the entire studio, for the rest of that coffee, which is maybe a cup and a half. But you have 2,000. He's just going to take that home. But there's 2,000 items for up to 80% off of everything. Think about that. With the mega sale happening right now, the My Cross replica for 30%, and My Towels, a 6-pack for $29.98, and the flannel sheets, $44.98. What other great deals made in America can you find? Hard to find out there. One, just looking at the internet and clicking send. I mean, you're also supporting a great man who fights for freedom of speech, fights for the Bill of Rights, fights for election integrity. There's no one braver, and shares it out there with people. I think about the time he went on Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy was just so rude to Mr. Lindell, and Mike treated him as another brother in Christ, and just said, "Look, this is my evidence. This is why I got to share with you why we need to defend these values. Come on, Jimmy, I have hope in you." And I don't know if there's much hope. He's more optimistic than I am when it comes to people like Jimmy Kimmel, who is a total loser, in my opinion. But I digress.
All things are possible, right? But
Amen.
mypillow.com/RSBN. Let's talk about the nightly hosts. Why not? Because they talk about President Trump. They talk about MAGA a lot, as you're looking live there at the National League of Cities podium there, where you're going to see Vice President J.D. Vance at any minute. Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon, and on. They're really not that funny either.
Right.
That's the thing that makes no sense. This is not Johnny Carson here.
Oh, no. It's not even Jay Leno. And, Jay talked about, because I was a big fan growing up of Carson, of Leno, and what Jay really talked about was stay away from politics. Come interview presidents, have them come on the show, but stay away from really where you land on things, because you want this broad appeal. Even Michael Jordan mentioned that way back in the day. If you watched The Last Dance during COVID, he talked about, I didn't want to get involved politically because Republicans buy sneakers too, and vice versa. So it's about being in business and being smart about that. And also, I think some celebrities, it's fine, they want to share their opinion, but at the end of the day, you're excluding perhaps half of the nation, more like 80-20 right now. But it just seems stupid to want to lecture people, especially someone like Kimmel, because he became famous from having girls in bikinis jumping up and down on trampolines. And then he wants to have moral arguments against President Trump, who is doing moral things for moral reasons in order to make America great again. I don't know. It's interesting. I'd love to see maybe a debate between the two of them. Would Jimmy even be confident enough to handle that? He probably wouldn't be confident enough to debate us. So you're always more than welcome on the show, Mr. Kimmel, but we'll see how that goes.
Definitely. All right. And then why not just talk about Seth Meyers, David Letterman, and on. Conan O'Brien's funny, but I think he's a little bit left. Hopefully he'll get right of center. Anyway, let's go to Washington, D.C. right now.
Now, the reason I'm on the stage, please allow me to introduce our headliner speaker for this season. He began his career serving in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, including a tour in Iraq. Upon returning home, he went to law school, became an investor in startups across the Midwest, and penned the best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. In 2022, he was elected to the U.S. Senate, representing the state of Ohio, where he served for 2 years. During his time in the Senate, he worked closely with NLC to advocate rail safety legislation in Congress and to make communities safer, co-sponsoring the Railway Safety Act of 2023. Last year, he stepped up to join President Donald Trump in his presidential campaign and was elected Vice President of the United States in November of 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
Thank you all. Thank you. Please take a seat. It's good to see everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you all for having me. Thank you to Councilman Kramer for the kind introduction. I was talking with him backstage a little bit. My wife and I both love the city of Louisville and have spent a lot of time there. So thank you for being here. It means a lot, and thanks for the kind words. And I'd say to all of you, whenever I was in the Senate and I welcomed a group from Ohio, and I know you guys represent the entire country or cities and municipalities all over the country, I would always just say, enjoy the town because it is your city. And I think that Washington is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place to spend a few days. I know you guys have some work to do, but I also think it's important to get out there and see the people's city. It was built with your tax dollars. I think these incredible buildings and museums are supported by all of you and, of course, by all the people that you represent. And so I hope you enjoy your time in Washington, D.C. So I know you're all busy, and I know it's never easy to come here to Washington, especially on a Monday. So I appreciate the effort involved in getting here. And I also appreciate the mission of this conference. The work you all do back home is extremely important. Most Americans, of course, they interact with their state and local governments far more regularly than they do their federal government, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way the Constitution sets it up. We know that good government starts at the local level. So while those of us in Washington certainly take up most of the press attention, and we do that whether we want to or not, I want to acknowledge the enormous impact local governments have on the lives of our great American citizens. Now, the Trump administration believes in the wisdom of federalism and leaving local issues to local officials. But we all also recognize the importance of supporting and collaborating with all of you because so many of the issues that you deal with, of course, implicate local issues, but state issues and federal issues as well. And one area of shared interest between President Trump and I think every single person in this room is the importance of providing good housing for our citizens at a reasonable and affordable cost. And I have to say, I'm hard-pressed to think of a time in my 40 years of life where it's been so hard for normal American citizens to afford a home. Even renting a home has become a challenge, or worse yet, fallen completely out of reach for so many of our families. I was talking with a relative a couple of years ago, and she just made kind of an offhanded observation. As a younger person than I am, she was looking to buy her first home and just mentioned that when her parents were growing up, they could afford a nice home on a single middle-class income. And she was sort of mentioning this as a sorrowful thing. She was sad that that wasn't true for her generation. And I think all of us in this room, certainly including me, have a little bit more work to do, I think, to make housing more affordable. I want to talk about that because I think it's the issue where our interests in some ways are most aligned with the people in this room. I read recently that the average income it takes to buy a new house is nearly 2 times the average salary of your typical American family. Not the average American worker, but the combined incomes of a husband and wife, and that's just not acceptable or sustainable in the United States of America. We want Americans to be able to afford the American dream of homeownership because we know that when people own their homes, it makes them a stakeholder. It makes them a stakeholder in their neighborhoods, in their cities, and ultimately, of course, in this country that all of us love so much. We want our citizens to feel that investment in their own country, and it's hard. It's hard to feel that investment if you feel like you can't even own a slice of it, even if that's what you want to do. Now, on a more basic level, we don't want people living paycheck to paycheck. We don't want them to make trade-offs between a trip to the grocery store and meeting next month's rent. Because even if you don't yet own a home, or even if you don't ever want to own a home, the knowledge that if you work hard and spend wisely, eventually you'll be able to afford a nice place to live, that goes, I think, a very long way to giving people a sense that they belong here and a sense that they have a stake in the future. Now, there are some important reasons why that belief is dwindling among Americans today. And a lot of it, of course, comes from the historic inflation that this country has dealt with over the last 4 years. Now, under the previous administration, to get a little bit political, the cost of a median price home in America more than doubled, and that was just in 4 years. And if your salary didn't keep pace with inflation and rise 20%, your buying power took even a bigger hit. And of course, if you think about this, if the price of a home doubles and the price and your actual salary doesn't double, then you're a lot worse off. And we know that most Americans did not see their salary double over the last 4 years. So it's no surprise that home sales hit a 30-year low in 2024. Now, another reason for the elevating costs comes down to zoning. And the reality, as you all know, is that zoning is an area where federal authority is actually quite limited. And I'm sure none of you want the federal government in the business of mandating how cities and towns handle local laws, and that's certainly not what we want to do either. But I would ask everyone in this room is to be good partners with us, and certainly partners with your citizens, and think about how we can improve the costs of the costs of housing for our citizens. And I think one of the ways that we're going to have to do that is by being a little bit smarter about our local zoning rules. And in particular, when I think about zoning, I can't help but think about it without, of course, the communities that I know best, which are those that I represented in the state of Ohio. And Columbus, Ohio in particular, I assume we've got some Columbus people here. And Columbus is a boom town in so many ways. I've got relatives and family members who live there, who love Columbus. It's a magnet because it's had so much economic development. But one of the things that I worry about when I look at a city like Columbus or Miami, which became a boom town during the COVID years, is the unaffordability of housing. And we've got to fix that. If we actually want these places to be magnets, not just for jobs and investment, but also the dreams of our young people, we've got to actually make it easier to build homes. And in particular, I think the city of Austin has done a pretty interesting job, because in Austin, you saw this massive increase of people moving in. The cost of housing skyrocketed, but then Austin implemented some pretty smart policies, and that brought down the cost of housing. And it's one of the few major American cities where you see the cost of housing leveling off or even coming down. Now, the Trump administration has taken important steps to make building cheaper and to boost the supply of housing. Now, of course, it's going to take time, but this is a day one issue for our entire team from the president on down. On his first day in office, the president issued an executive order making it a priority to bring down prices for new buyers. Now, part of that will come from slashing needless regulations, which, according to some estimates, account for about 25% of a new single-family build today. We've also seen Secretary Turner, our great Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He's working hard on this issue, cutting some of the Biden rules at HUD that hike costs and shifted decision-making from local governments to Washington, D.C. And Secretaries Burgum and Wright, and certainly Administrator Zeldin at the EPA, are putting in important work to bring down the cost of energy, which is, of course, a critical input to the cost of building a home, to say nothing, of course, of heating one and keeping its lights on. But I actually want to focus on something a little bit different, because I think this is one of the areas where what the Trump administration can do and has done is going to be one of the major drivers of bringing down the cost of housing. Now, local zoning, regulations, the cost of energy, these things are about the supply of housing. How do we get more houses out there to be built? But I think it's important to talk about the demand side of the housing market. And so much of what we're doing in the Trump administration when it comes to the immigration issue is framed about law enforcement, about reducing fentanyl coming into our communities. And that is true. That is a big part of why we're doing what we're doing at the border. But when we talk about housing and why costs are so high, we don't talk enough about demand. And one of the drivers of increased housing demand, we know, is that we've got a lot of people over the last 4 years who have come into the country illegally. And that's something we have to work on if we want to meaningfully reduce the cost of housing too. Now just think about this. If you allow 20 million people to compete with American citizens for the cost of homes, you are going to have a large and frankly completely preventable spike in the demand for housing. And that is what we, of course, have seen, because while we made it a little bit hard to build homes in this country over the last 4 years, we've also, unfortunately, made it way too easy for people to compete against American citizens for the precious homes that are in our country to begin with. Now, I'll say this, it's actually not just an American problem either. If you go to Canada, where because of their laws and regulations, they've seen a massive increase in the number of people who have come into their country. You go to the United Kingdom, you go across the world, and you see a very consistent relationship between a massive increase in immigration and a massive increase in housing prices. And we have to be honest about that. Well, I see one of our nice representatives out here wants to actually, I guess, continue to flood the country with illegal immigrants, making your communities and citizens unaffordable. But ma'am, with all respect, one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is because we want to make it more affordable for Americans to live. That is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Now, last week, I visited the southern border, and we decided to check in on what's going on there at the southern border. And of course, like I said earlier, you often hear about immigration enforcement as about crime and about drug trafficking, and that is a big part of it. I was at Eagle Pass, and I was talking to local border control down there, and they told me that in just a matter of weeks, their small part of the border had gone from 1,500 daily encounters to less than 30. And again, that's in a matter of weeks. That's just a simple matter of common sense border enforcement. That matters. Thank you. And let's talk about why it matters. I mentioned housing. But one of the things I heard down there, I was talking to the mayor in that community, and he said it's incredibly stressful on local resources. It's stressful on their local hospitals. It's stressful on their local schools to have this massive increase. And so while, look, I recognize there's a diversity of opinions here, clearly there is, I also think it's important to be honest about those disagreements, to acknowledge those disagreements, but to say that the reason why we care about border security is because we want your communities to be safer, we want them to be more affordable, we want there to be less drugs in our country, and we want your citizens to be able to live the American dream. It is the birthright of every single one of our citizens, and we're going to fight for it every single day. So, with all due respect for some of the disagreements and opinion, I'd say we welcome disagreements. We want to talk about those disagreements, but we also have to respect the law in the United States of America. And I can tell. And I can tell you that, yes, of course, you're going to disagree with some of our policies. That's okay. Come and tell us when you disagree with our policies, and we'll have a conversation about it. Maybe don't shout it in front of 2,000 people. I can't even hear what you're saying, sir. But importantly, on this question of immigration, we have to recognize that, yes, you can disagree with some of the laws that are in place. You can disagree with the enforcement of those laws. You can even vote for people who want to change those laws. But while we have immigration laws on the books, we will enforce them, and we expect our local municipalities to help us. So it will be the policy of the Trump administration to enforce the nation's laws, and it will be the policy of the Trump administration to say that it is not up to local cities to choose which federal laws that they're going to enforce. It's important. We can't do immigration enforcement with sanctuary cities. We've got to have everybody respecting the law, and that is going to be one of the major policy focuses, of course, of the Trump administration, and it already has been. And I want to just say one final point about this issue of housing and of the strains that immigration and illegal immigration in particular put on our housing stock. We know from economists that blue-collar folks are often those who face the biggest cuts in wages and in services when you have communities overwhelmed by illegal immigration. I come from a blue-collar family. And I think one of the main drivers is that we need to be able to give our citizens, black, white, or whatever skin color, whatever belief system that they have, if you are an American citizen, you deserve to have a government at the local, city, and federal level that fights for the American dream for you. And we've seen yes, over the Biden administration, but let's be honest, over 40 years of American policy, we've seen a lot of our blue-collar Americans, urban and rural, struggling to afford a home, struggling to raise their kids in safe communities, struggling to look to the future with hope and optimism. And so, with all respect for policy disagreements, I think that one thing that unites us in this room is that we want to give our blue-collar people in the United States of America a shot at the American dream again. We may disagree about how exactly to do it, but let's do it together. Let's fight for our people together, and let's reinvigorate the American dream for the American citizen once again. And let me close here with just an acknowledgement here that I know you guys have some of the hardest jobs in government, Democrat, Republican, or nonpartisan. You guys are the ones, of course, who fix the potholes. You guys are the ones that make sure our local police have the funding that they need, our local firefighters are able to do the incredible job that they do. So I just want to let you know, from the Trump administration, from the president, the vice president, and everybody else, we respect what you do. We're impressed by you. We think you guys are doing a great job, and we want to make sure that you have a presidential administration that is making your lives easier and not harder. So please, consider our administration one with an open door. Please come to us when you have issues. Even if you don't like what we're doing on the policy, you guys have got to be able to come and talk to us. So keep doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy the rest of your time in Washington. God bless you guys, and thank you for doing the great job.
Well, there you go, a live address there by the Vice President of the United States here on this Monday, March 10th. I'm Matthew Alvarez alongside Robert McNeely, our great RSBN host here. You know, your thoughts about just the Vice President. He's been doing such a good job.
Well, again, he knocks it out of the park, batting 1,000, but also those policy points of really talking to these mayors and these city leaders, mentioning the fact that everything's better at the local level. That is our form of government. It's nice to have people in charge, be that President Trump and Vice President Vance, who truly believe in federalism and giving that local authority its chance to blossom and flourish. Of course, our states are the experiments of democracy and really those lab tests that could take place in order to see what's a good idea versus a bad idea, and then replicate that at the federal level. It's not about having a big federal city and oligarchs running your life. It's about those who are represented locally, who you call by their first name and you know them, who happen to be your mayor, you know, and your neighbor as well. So just a lot of common sense coming from this administration.
Exactly, to your point and to the point of common sense, President Trump on Truth Social yesterday saying, I want a dynamic country where private enterprise carries the day, not the government. So he knows it's all about strength, but it's also about less government. He said that as part of the reason as to why he won the White House and why we won the White House together. So great to see that on this Monday, March 10th. Now, there's a lot more from President Trump coming up later today. A few events happening, so you can stay with Right Side Broadcasting Network for that coverage. Also, we'll be uploading various things. I mean, there's so many things from executive orders to a roundtable to the swearing in of the Secret Service director at the White House a bit later. So you can stay with Right Side for all of that. We do want to thank a number of our sponsors here at Right Side, including Colonial Metals Group.
Yes, an outstanding group, your go-to for gold and silver. Of course, Paul Stone, the CEO of this wonderful organization, really giving you a gift to the American people. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Learn all you can, no obligation, about time-tested tangibles such as gold and silver, something you can hold in your hand and can protect you against inflation.
Also, let's go to AmericanFinancing.net, AmericanFinancing.net. If you're looking to save about $800 a month, you can do that through American Financing when it comes to the refinancing and purchasing of homes and home loans there. So AmericanFinancing.net. We want to thank AngelPaste.com as well. Angel Paste out of Spring, Texas, hiring military veterans. A lot of great products right there on your screen. AngelPaste.com. And Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock is awesome as well. Instead of getting your title stolen from you, you've got a group that will help you there. HomeTitleLock.com/RSBN.
Yeah, they'll protect you up to $1 million of a loan to really make sure that these horrible people, this FBI is calling these home title lock fraudsters, that literally go in and they write down the documents, bring it over to your local recorder's office, and can actually sell your home behind your back, and you won't even know about it until you get collection notices and forfeiture notices. So HomeTitleLock.com/RSBN. This is the fastest growing scam in the United States right now.
All right, so there you go, HomeTitleLock.com/RSBN. We also would like to thank the great MyPillow organization, the company there, MyPillow.com, more than 2,000 products, as you guys know. Go ahead and check them out. And also, while we're on live right now, in the chats, wherever you are watching, put yes or no if you have any MyPillow products. So again, just put yes or no if you have any MyPillow products. I know we have one here.
Oh yes, I love MyPillow, and it was the original MyPillow. They got me hooked, but we also have that MyCoffee. Where'd we put that? It's somewhere around here.
Oh, it's actually right here.
Yeah, I think we threw it over there. It smells great. It looks great. We got about 1.5 cups left, so we're going to rock, paper, scissors over this delicious item. But yes, over 2,000 items on the website with up to 80% off. And of course, the mega sale going on. The My Cross, My Towels, and flannel sheets, thanks to the First Amendment freedom fighter himself, Mr. Mike Lindell, and his outlet out of Minnesota. A great team of people who will take care of you. Give them a call today, 800-836-7566.
All right, so let's just be unconventional because we can, because we have the freedom to do so. So, all right, so let's see, we're going to do the rock, paper, scissors, best of one. Ready?
Best of one. Let's go.
Okay.
I like sundown.
1, 2, 3, shoot.
Oh, that's tight. 1, 2, 3, shoot.
You win. There you go.
That's mine. Ah, it smells great. I hate to lose. I'm sorry.
No, I hear you loud and clear. Well, enjoy that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go buy some, I guess, at mypillow.com. Guys, thank you so much for streaming in live with us. We have a lot of news coming your way a bit later today from that beautiful White House. For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, for Robert McNeely and Matthew Alvarez, we'll see you in a bit.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free. I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.